They see a power line down, tree down or something, just use exercise caution with that, because if there are power lines down in that tree, it could harm them if they're still energized.
Much of the cleanup is done, but officials say some areas will take a bit longer. Will Lewis, Queen City News.
Well, from severe storms to severe heat, health experts now warn this week's warmer temperatures are now also bringing a higher risk of heat-related illnesses. So doctors say it's very important to know the difference between heat exhaustion and heat stroke and to be able to recognize those warning signs. So they say that heat stroke is much worse and it's much more serious, but there are also ways to stay ahead and then also reduce your risk.
In general, you want to go ahead and drink fluid before you get thirsty. You want to get ahead of the game. Fruits, vegetables, high in water content are good for you. You also want to limit some of the caffeine, alcohol, things like that.
So if you do start to be able to feel some symptoms, experts say acting quickly is critical. So they also warn if you feel dizziness, don't drive, but instead call 911. Hundreds of volunteers now working to equip thousands of people with everything they need to be able to beat the heat. So this is a look here at the Charlotte Convention Center, where 200 volunteers are assembling more than 10,000 hygiene and inclement weather kits for those in need. And the kits will include basic items like soap, toothpaste, and also weather supplies. Well, those close to the initiative say these items are especially important for people living without stable housing, families struggling to afford everyday essentials.
Anytime we have an opportunity to come out and support our community nonprofit partners and work together to show up for our neighbors, it's really important for us. Our employees love to do it. We have a great time. It's a great team building. But then really at the end of the day, we're doing something that matters for our community.
And today's event is a partnership between leaders from Duke Energy Foundation, United Way of Greater Charlotte, Roof Above, and Nourish Up. Let's take a live look here over Lake Norman. Speaking of this heat that we're seeing outside, as I bring in meteorologist Brandon Lawson. Brandon, right now, high heat, high humidity.
Oh, yeah.
Just got to be careful out there.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've been kind of creating the little joke out of it earlier with the North Carolina, South Carolina region. I'm saying, we're replacing Mercury and Venus in outer space, and we're just putting North Carolina and South Carolina there, because that's essentially what it's felt like all week. The sun, our closest star, has been shining so bright over us and just baking us throughout the last several days. But the good news is we are going to get to come back to Earth as we get towards the weekend. Temperatures getting back to the upper 80s by Saturday, low 90s by Friday, too. So much cooler weather on the way, with temperatures getting more seasonable for this time of year. Not before another quick warm-up tomorrow, though. Back into the mid to upper 90s tomorrow. High pressure's in control. That's going to keep us dry through the day today. But notice we've got two front boundaries. It looks like both of them are basically closing in on us. Going to be squeezing moisture out over us here over the next couple of days and creating higher storm chances. Here's Futurecast. It keeps us dry today. Again, there's going to be an isolated storm that tries to pop up on Futurecast, but I'm thinking we stay dry today. Again, we've got dry high pressure in control, and I'm just not really expecting storms to pop up. If they do, it's like a 5% chance this afternoon. As you look at Futurecast for tomorrow, that's when I suspect we'll see a few isolated downpours popping up in and around the Charlotte area and possibly up in the mountains too. Storm chances will gradually increase through Thursday evening and Thursday night. Heavier downpours, potentially some isolated stronger gusts, but the main concern later in the week is going to be heavier rain. Again, we've got rounds of showers and storms that will be lifting into our region as we go through the day on Friday, starting Friday morning, continuing into Friday afternoon, and more storms continuing into Friday evening as a lot of varsity football programs get back to their football season on Friday night, with some moving their games to Thursday night just because of the storm chances. Isolated storms are possibilities. We get into your Saturday too, but storm covers will be a little lower on Saturday than what we're expecting for Friday. We do have that flash flood risk for Friday as well. Isolated flash flooding, the threat there. Southeast of I-85, I believe that's where the threat will be the highest, but I would not be shocked if the Weather Prediction Center kind of moves this around a little bit over the next couple of days, just depending on where that front sets up and where the heaviest rain sets up here for Friday. So if you're headed out to Friday Night Lights, again, just be prepared for storms. Have the poncho handy. And if you have a kid that is playing in football and they're going to be out Thursday night, the forecast looks better. I will say I've seen a lot of high school coaches in the area moving their games to Thursday night just to avoid the heavy thunderstorms on Friday. not a bad thing to do, especially with the storm still looking to increase as we go into Friday evening. A half an inch to an inch of rain expected here for the latter half of the week and into the weekend. We'll take it. About an inch in Wadesboro and Rockingham. That's where, again, the highest flood threat seems to be at this time. Mid to upper 80s, low 90s, especially as you're getting towards Monroe, Sherall, Rockingham. They're cooking already. We're near 90 in Charlotte, 89 again. Once we get to 90, it'll mark the 12th straight day of 90 degrees or higher. 77 at Boone right now, pushing towards the low 80s there. I'm calling it mid 90s in Charlotte today with those lower 90s in the foothills. Mountain forecast showing 82 today, but then again, temperatures start to dwindle down a bit. Back in the 70s with more storm chances towards the end of the week. Showers and storage possible for Charlotte as well as we get towards Friday and into the weekend. Those temperatures also coming down to upper 80s, low 90s. And guess what? Next week we get low humidity on top of it.
We're street business, we're street food. We serve the crowds. So the crowds usually come out to the scene around 10, 11 o'clock. That is when the business starts.
Food trucks in Charlotte say they're losing out big time on late night profit. Their calls for change. You're watching Queen City News at noon, the most honored and the most local news in Charlotte. The late night food truck operators say a permanent midnight shutdown to curb crime in Uptown now could cost them big bucks. Local food trucks operators now say they have received an email from officials back in June requesting that the trucks temporarily stop serving customers at midnight. They say shortly after they received another email saying that the new hours would be permanent due to recent public safety concerns. Food truck managers say it's hurt their business and the community. An online petition opposing the move has now more than 1,200 signatures on change.org and even more physical signatures.
How does that affect them? How does it affect the broader community? And if you're doing it with this business, where does it stop? To me, it's bigger than just the food. It's bigger than our nightlife. It is about the fact that there is a broader community that exists at night that needs their help, that needs to stop by and talk to them, get food from them, and sometimes just needs their eyes on them.
Well, local leaders say Uptown is now regulated by an economic and community development organization, not the city. So officials with the group declined to comment, referring us to CMPD. We haven't heard from police just yet. Physical driver's license could be a thing of the past, while your phone may soon be the only thing that you need to get around North Carolina. You're watching Queen City News at noon. Here's a live look over Monroe right now, 89 degrees outside the Queen City. Your time is 12:26, and you're watching the most honored and the most local news in Charlotte. Welcome back. Top stories are following right now at this hour. A Charlotte woman facing murder charges in connection with the deadly stabbing of an employee outside Tent World on Monroe Road. This all happened around 6 last night. Authorities say Kiara McKnight told officers the victim was her child's father and that they often had arguments over child support. McKnight is accused of stabbing the 34-year-old man before speeding away in a car. She was later located in Union County. And an 85-year-old man accused of killing his business partner will not face the death penalty. Willard Black, the co-owner of Old Hickory Tannery, faced the judge today. He's accused of shooting 59-year-old Robert Aguirrelis back in June after a heated argument happened. Court documents show Black was ordered to pay him $300,000 on the same day of the shooting. No word on another court date at this time. And the controversial I-77 toll lane project will be back on the table tonight as the Charlotte Regional Transportation Planning Organization prepares to be able to meet. The group pulled its support of the toll lane project back in May after leaders cited problems with the project. However, backtracking would require officials to pay back $60 million for the I-77 designs. So the board meets tonight. It begins at 6 in Uptown, and we will keep you posted. Let's take a live look here over Gaston County. Talk about this hot weather outside. Right now it's 89 degrees when you look outside the Queen City. As I bring in meteorologist Brandon Lawson.
Man, you could just see the heat and humidity from that Dallas Tower camera. Those clouds bubbling up, Alicia. That's a sign of that heat humidity building into the Carolinas for another day. We're at 89 degrees here in Charlotte. This is a live look from our Independence Boulevard camera. You can see those fair weather cumulus clouds here. They're off in the distance right over Uptown. Variable winds. They're pretty light though, about 5 miles per hour. Here's a live live look for Boone King Street. Well, again, a lot of kids back to school at App State as well. We've got temperatures in the 70s. I'm seeing King Street get a little bit more packed here lately with all the college students getting back to school there. Much cooler in the mountains, but still pretty humid. Feeling like 97 right now in Charlotte, feeling like 95 in Rock Hill, and feeling like 99 in Sherall. Again, this is when you factor in the feels like temperature and the humidity. So those max feels like temperatures could be in the upper 90s for Charlotte later today, and likely possibly exceeding 100 degrees towards Sherall and Rockingham. No heat advisories today, though. We don't quite reach that heat advisory criteria in parts of the Carolinas that we've seen over the last several days. This is the first time in 6 days we haven't had a heat advisory for parts of the Carolinas in our Queen City News viewing area, I should say, but I do expect them to return tomorrow. Radar is dry today, and again, there's a chance we see maybe a pop-up storm this afternoon. It's like a 5% chance of that, but most of us stay dry under dry high pressure. Storm chances increasing towards the end of the week. We'll time the storms out for you and talk about a cool weekend ahead in just a bit, Alicia.
All right, thank you, Brandon, for that. So the NTSB says speeding, cannabis, impairment, and limited driving experience all likely caused a deadly crash on I-45 last year. 6 people died, including a teen driver and 5 family members in another vehicle. So in a final report released Tuesday, officials say the teen driver, who was likely impaired by cannabis, quickly approached another car in the middle lane and then swerved into the right lane, colliding with a van. 2 vehicles then collided with a large truck, which officials say was illegally parked for a non-emergency reason. The driver of the truck and 1 person in the van are the only survivors of the crash. Charlotte area transit officials estimate that the city loses up to $6.5 million in revenue due to unpaid fares. Well, to combat that and to be able to help with public safety, the state auditor is now recommending CATS install turnstiles at light rail stations. But as Queen City News reporter Matt Stell explains, not everyone is on board with that idea, and others just think that it just will work.
Attention passengers. Failure to show valid proof of payment may result in a citation.
But despite that friendly warning, North Carolina State Auditor Dave Bullock says fare enforcement on buses and trains is essentially non-existent in the city of Charlotte.
At some point, there ought to be a mechanism to actually enforce the fares. Either that or there needs to be a public policy of eliminating the fares altogether.
In his final report regarding CATS's safety and security, which comes nearly a year after Irina Zarutska was killed on Charlotte's Blue Line, Bullock strongly recommends that CATS add turnstiles or gates to every light rail station. It's an idea that many have called unfeasible or too costly because of how the open-air platforms are built.
What I've heard in feedback is that it's hard and difficult to do. Well, just because something's hard and difficult doesn't mean we shouldn't do it.
Now, for instance, here at the Parkwood station in Noda, under the auditor's recommendations, CATS would have to add turnstiles or at least gates to at least 1 or 2 of these entrances to the open-air platform. Then CATS would also have to add fencing to keep fare evaders from easily hopping over. But that's just here at Parkwood. That would have to happen at every stop along the Blue Line. In the city of St. Louis, transit officials there are spending more than $50 million to add turnstiles and enclosed light rail platforms as part of safety upgrades. But Charlotte City Council member Dimple Ajmir believes Charlotte isn't ready to spend that type of money yet.
Before we throw away millions of dollars in installing gates and turnstiles, we need to make sure that the evidence shows that it will help us keep our system safe.
Instead, Ajmir believes that CATS should focus more on truly enforcing its exclusion list, which essentially bans problem passengers from riding after multiple offenses.
Otherwise, it's just a list if we don't enforce it, and that's where the rubber meets the road.
In response to the auditor's recommendations, CATS pointed to improvements that it has already made in the last year, but did not commit to adding turnstiles or gates to platforms. In Charlotte, Matt Stell, Queen City News.
Well, North Carolina residents can soon store a digital driver's license on their iPhone as the state expands mobile ID options. Arizona is the first state to allow a driver's license to be uploaded into Apple Wallet, while the NCDMV says a digital ID will launch later this year, yes, through the state's new NC Wallet app. Well, support for Apple Wallet is expected to follow in early 2027, allowing users to add their license directly to their iPhone. North Carolina would join a growing list of states offering digital IDs through Apple's Wallet platform. Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools, the transportation team is now launching an enhanced bus tracking app. So it's called Alpha Portal, and it's for families who rely on the bus for their students. Some of the new features include live bus tracking, arrival notifications, route alerts, and also more. So CMS students return to class next Tuesday. First day of school comes shortly after the district superintendent was reinstated following a 2-month investigation. Dr. Crystal Hill spoke publicly Tuesday for the first time since the school board voted to bring her back. But as Queen City News anchor Caroline Boyer tells us, many questions remain about what prompted her suspension in the first place.
At a back-to-school media briefing Tuesday, the focus on a new year quickly shifted to a call for transparency from district officials. They've yet to release any details about Superintendent Dr. Crystal Hill's 8-week suspension.
I want to acknowledge the events of the past several weeks. To ignore it or to pretend that it didn't happen would not be authentic, and that's simply not who I am.
That's how the superintendent started off her first public appearance following her reinstatement.
However, I want to point out that today is not the time or the place to have that discussion.
District leaders tried to turn discussion toward wins for the upcoming school year. They touted a decrease in the total number of criminal acts on campuses during the past few years, a lower than 2% teacher vacancy rate, and new guidelines to limit technology use in the classroom, particularly for grades K through 2.
But our focus is really on looking at making sure that technology use at all levels, certainly first is developmentally appropriate, but that it is purposeful.
Despite school officials instructing reporters to only ask about back-to-school preps.
You can certainly email media and then we can get back to you, but we're not answering any questions.
The conversation kept going back to Dr. Hill's leave.
I feel very confident about my leadership and the leadership of our team.
A few school board members were in the room for the press conference. One of them, Cynthia Stone, didn't answer questions directly about the investigation, but did say this.
If, for example, the CEO of Kroger had an experience like this, do you think the grocery stores would close or open? They'd open, of course, and that's what we're going to do.
Board Chair Stephanie Sneed left before taking any questions. On Hill's way out, she did emphasize this won't be the last time we discuss the weeks-long probe.
There will be an opportunity for more information to be shared sooner rather than later.
It's unclear when we'll learn more details about this investigation. All we know is we were promised they're coming soon. The first day of school for students is Tuesday, August 25th. In Charlotte, Caroline Boyer, Queen City News.
Thank you, Caroline. Okay, so North Carolina Governor Josh Stein is delivering school supplies today in Concord. Stein is now scheduled to stop by Irvin Elementary. The supplies were collected as part of the annual Governor's School Supply Drive that happened earlier this summer. Stein signed the state budget, which included teacher raises and support for programs to improve student outcomes.
I never would have thought 20 years ago that I would be standing here talking about a world record.
Gastonia Barber is the fastest in town and now the world. We're going to introduce you to the record-breaking stylist. How about that? Okay, you're watching Queen City News at noon. The most honored and the most local news right here in the Queen City.
Welcome to Epic Discounts by BestReviews.com. I'm Melissa Bergamini.
And I'm Ashley Howard. And when you see us, you know what that means. It is time to scan the QR code on your screen because we are ready to save big.
That's right, Ashley. And today we have some kitchen must-haves that are really going to help you prep food faster and spend less time cooking.
All right, so let's start with the Ninja Mega Kitchen System. We are all familiar with Ninja's blenders, but with this one, they've outdone themselves. The blender attachment pulverizes ice in seconds, and the bowl attachment functions as a food processor, chopping and blending anything you can fit inside. Plus, it comes with on-the-go cups, so you can take your smoothies straight out the door.
One machine, so many jobs. This is going to cut your chopping time way down. And if you want to pair that smoothie with a breakfast sandwich, of course you do, then you'll definitely want this. The Hamilton Beach Dual Breakfast Sandwich Maker. Now, this little appliance makes up to 2 custom breakfast, lunch, or dinner sandwiches in just 5 minutes or less. It has a digital countdown timer that signals when it's done, so you don't have to worry about burning anything.
Ooh, that sounds good to me.
Yes.
It's easy to clean with dishwasher safe microwave components, this is the perfect solution for busy mornings, especially before school. Now, next is the Cosori Air Fryer Pro with 9 cooking functions and temperatures that can reach up to 450 degrees. This is your new go-to on those days where you don't want to turn on the oven. Just toss in your French fries, chicken fingers, and even a steak, and let this bad boy do all the work for you.
That sounds great to me. And last but certainly not least, the Cook Triple Slow Cooker Buffet Server and Food Warmer. I know it's hard to believe, but the holidays are almost here, and this is an absolute must for your next family gathering.
Each crock has its own temperature knob with low, high, and warm settings, which gives you the ability to cook or keep 3 different dishes warm all at the same time.
I mean, how cool is that? My sister, she's gonna love this.
All right, now let's take one last look at today's products, helping you save money.
Head to epicdiscounts.com or just scan that QR code to scan, shop, and save with Epic Discounts by Best Reviews.
Eyes on Iowa. I'm Blake Berman, host of The Hill on News Nation. With less than 11 weeks to go until the November midterms, Iowa is shaping up to be one of the most competitive states on the map as Democrats and Republicans vie for an open Senate seat, the governor's mansion, and a number of key House races. The Trump administration sending top cabinet members to the Hawkeye state to stump for Republicans, including the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, the Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, and Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. For over 50 years, the Iowa State Fair has become a known proving ground for presidential hopefuls. And traditionally, Iowa stood as the first state in the presidential primary cycle. However, Democrats just announced a new move. The Democratic National Committee recently revealing its first 6 states for 2028, and Iowa was not among them. I'm Blake Berman, and this is the News Nation Political Minute.
A Gastonia salon owner is now earning international prestige. Molly Prescott now holds a Guinness World Record. Well, Queen City News reporter David Schuman spoke with her about how she gave some of the fastest haircuts ever.
Let's set the stage for history.
Caramont Health Park, Gastonia, September 2025. Molly Prescott is about to attempt to set a Guinness World Record. Hair measured, clients in place. She's ready.
3, 2, 1.
And she's off. The goal is to give 5 consecutive skin fade haircuts at an unprecedented speed.
The previous record was 14 minutes and 54 seconds.
This was Prescott on Tuesday, back in the Gastonia salon she owns, Faded Cuts and Shaves. She says she first learned the record existed in a Facebook post and thought, I can beat that.
When you put that much time into something, this has been my whole life. You know, hair raised me. And I don't regret it. It's been a great career.
More than 20 years into that career, she applied to break the record. The anchor leg, the final fade, belonged to Jimmy Woody.
Like, well, you know, she cuts hair every day, so I figured I didn't see why she couldn't do it.
Done.
11 minutes, 54 seconds. Record shattered.
Once you actually have the title, you're like, whoa, I just did that. Oh, and I just dropped the clippers. That's how excited I am that I'm dropping clippers.
It took Prescott less than 12 minutes to set the record and almost a year to become an official world record holder. Now that her submission's been approved, the certificate's on its way in the mail.
I never would have thought 20 years ago that I would be standing here talking about a world record. Like, how many people can say that they have a Guinness Book of World Records? Not many.
Prescott's day-to-day may not match the excitement of setting records. She's struggling to hire someone right now, in fact, but she welcomes all challengers.
If you think you can beat me, get to it. Come on up.
In Gastonia, David Schumann, Queen City News.
I mean, you know, that is a nice flex, right? Okay, so students, as they head back to school, a North Carolina barber is making sure a fresh haircut is one less expense for families. Madtown Barbershop in Rockingham County is now offering free haircuts to students. Owner Darren Dalton says giving back to the community is important to him and his family. He says that he learned early on that success requires showing up every day and putting in the work.
We had a couple of business owners around here that came up, stepped it up to help us out. So anytime we got a community to come together, man, we can do this, and we can probably do it every year. And I want to do it for the simple fact, I want the community to know that I am here. I'm here to help out.
Nice, so generous. Dalton says that the free haircut event at Madtown has helped more than 30 students and their families kick off the school year on the right foot. All right, let's talk about this weather outside. Take a live look here over Monroe as I bring in meteorologist Brandon Lawson. Brandon, nothing like a fresh cut on a hot day.
Yeah, I'm excited for mine tomorrow. I'm definitely looking forward to it. I need one. And we're talking about the hotter temperatures, but we are going to be cooling down as we get towards the weekend. So heat continues for now, but late week storms will bring a cool down for us as we get into the weekend. Now, with those storms, we do have to think about maybe the threat for isolated flash flooding as we get into Friday and really later in the day, because we'll be tracking rounds of storms. And whenever you're getting rounds of heavy rain, sometimes the ground can't soak it up quick enough, and that could lead to some isolated flash flooding issues. So that's what we'll watch for Friday and into Saturday, but we do dry out as we get towards the second half of the weekend. High pressure is in control today, so no rain to worry about today. It's a dry high pressure just kind of sitting right over top of us. There are a few storms trying to pop up on Futurecast. I'm just not buying it. Storms popped up on Futurecast yesterday. We didn't have any to worry about, so I think we'll be okay for the day today. 5% chance of that rogue cell. And then Futurecast shows dry conditions for the first part of the day tomorrow. So a few more clouds, and then here come a few isolated pop-up showers and storms, especially as we get towards the later evening hours. That's when I expect storms to start to ramp up. So most of the day tomorrow, it's about 20% chance of storms, and then it ramps up to about 30 to 40% later in the evening. And overnight, overnight Thursday night into Friday, that's when we expect those storms to really ramp up. It's a frontal boundary that's just kind of stalled out over the region, and that stalled boundary is going to lead to rounds of heavy rainfall just over and over again. And as those rounds of rainfall continue to move over the same areas over and over again, that could lead to that isolated flash flood threat as we go through the day on Friday. So just something to watch out for. But then by Saturday, mainly dry, but there could still be a few isolated showers and storms with this frontal boundary nearby as we go into Saturday afternoon. Here's a look at the flash flood risk I was talking about earlier. Isolated threat for now is what I'm going to go. The Weather Prediction Center does have a level 2 out of 4 risk southeast of I-85. I do think the threat's going to be pretty isolated just given we've been drier lately, but I won't rule out some, again, localized instances of high water, especially in poor drainage, poor low-lying spots. Half an inch to an inch of rain, a possibility in your rainfall forecast Friday into Saturday. So again, isolated high water spots possible southeast of high 85. Friday night football in jeopardy for a lot of teams. I know some varsity football teams have moved their games to Thursday night to avoid the heavy thunderstorms that we're going to be expecting into Friday night. So something to think about. 70s for now. Storms likely, though, for some of the games Friday night. Now, I know we've been counting down the days to the cool down, so I wanted to count down the days to cooler temperatures in a cooler way by showing you kind of a countdown with our holidays here. Labor Day is only 19 days away, and we usually experience about 85 degrees then. Halloween, 73 days away, 68 degrees our average temperature then. Thanksgiving's only 100 days away from now, so we're only 100 days away from Thanksgiving, carving it to the turkey. 60 degrees your average temperature then, and then your average temperature for Christmas is 53 degrees. We had 79 last year. It doesn't always work out that way, but likely we do get some less heat for the weekend. 88 on Saturday, 90 degrees on Sunday. A few storms are still a possibility in the Saturday. Saturday forecast showing stormy conditions in the mountains, just scattered on Saturday in the 70s. Drier for Sunday. Temperatures right now, mid to upper 80s, upper 70s towards the mountains. We'll be in the mid 90s this afternoon with 80s in the mountains. Tropics staying pretty quiet, and luckily El Nino continues to shut things down in the Atlantic Basin. The only thing we're going to be worried about is getting rid of this heat as we get towards the end of the week. We'll call it 97 tomorrow, and then much cooler towards Friday and into the weekend with lower humidity to top things off into early next week. You're watching Queen City News here at noon. It's the most honored and most local news in the Queen City. We'll be right back right after this.
Welcome back. Crown now getting right back to work after their 3-1 win on Saturday against Columbus. So they're now up north in Toronto tonight as their long string of matches continue. Unfortunately, though, they'll have to do so without the help of Harry Toffolo, who's now out with a hamstring injury that'll keep him sidelined until the end of the month. But head coach Dean Smith still believes the team has momentum on their side.
It's important that we travel well now. We're back at home again on Saturday. It's a 3-game week, and these are always big. We've started in the best possible way with a victory, and if you can make this a 7 or 9 point week, then it becomes a big week for you.
Well, Charlotte FC's match against Toronto is now set for tonight, 7:30. Crown will then return home to take on DC United Saturday night at the Bank. All right, now to the world of NASCAR. Ford is now looking to expand its NASCAR footprint in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, and that expansion could actually come as soon as next season. So multiple sources now tell us that talks between a few teams have now happened, and the manufacturer is now trying to be able to be more competitive at NASCAR's second highest level. So as of right now, there are no full-time Ford cars in the series, but the last one was Haas Factory, who left the blue brand last season for Chevy. Speaking of NASCAR, Kyle Larson will be in the Queen City today to visit the Atrium Health Levine Children's Hospital. So pediatric patients now will get also to be able to design and decorate their own race cars alongside Larson's championship pit crew. That event is set for 1 o'clock this afternoon. You're watching Queen City News, the most honored and the most local news in Charlotte. Well, Queen City News has a whole new way to stay connected to us when we are not on the air live. So you can download the Queen City News Plus app on your smart TV using either a Roku, Apple TV, or Amazon Fire device. So this right here is the lineup on the app for today. So you got Pinpoint Weather University at 1 this afternoon, then at 1:30 Across America, followed by Capital Conversation at 2 o'clock. You can watch it all on our new Queen City News Plus app. Brandon.
Yeah, we talked all about the heat in Pinpoint Weather University today. You can check that out. Still talking about the heat over the next couple of days. Mid to upper 90s through Thursday, but then we get cooler for the weekend. Back in the 80s again by Saturday. Comes to dispense some more storms though on Friday for sure.
All right, thank you, Brandon, and thanks for watching Queen City News. We'll see you next on Queen City News at 4.
Take care. Welcome into Pinpoint Weather University, my friends. I'm meteorologist Brandon Lawson here on Queensland News Plus. Always a big welcome to our YouTube viewers as well. Want to get right into it. We've had the ring of fire set up at meteorology across much of the eastern U.S. and central U.S. And we're talking about massive damage created by what are called MCSs, mesoscale convective systems, also known as storm clusters, storm complexes. There's probably several different ways. You've probably heard BOECHO, and it kind of is a little bit of a remnants of the MCSs. But something that a lot of you might have heard yesterday is a newer word to some, and it's called derecho. And that's what the Storm Prediction Center confirmed yesterday in the upper Midwest. We're talking about a widespread, long-lived windstorm associated with a fast-moving band of severe thunderstorms. That is the definition of a derecho. Now, there's so many different characteristics that a derecho has to have in order for it to be deemed a derecho. Now, you're probably wondering, derecho, why is it called that? Well, the name is actually derived from the Spanish word meaning straight or direct. Now, the derecho comes from straight line winds, so that's where the whole Spanish term derecho comes in to the picture here. Now, you can see, again, Storm Prediction Center, they put it out. Here's a look at that derecho from yesterday, moving through parts of northern Indiana, the Illinois region. I mean, this was a significant damage crater. This was a look at the shelf cloud that loomed over Chicago's West Loop. And then whenever you got a well-defined shelf cloud like that, that means that there are some very nasty winds in that. Again, you're talking about the cold air that is just plunging out of the storm and pushing out. So even before the storm is there, you can already see how some of the leaves on the trees and some of the flowers are being blown around a little bit. And that is because of all that wind being pushed out from the thunderstorm itself. And then also another video, and this is looking at just those heavy winds and that rain just crashing down to the ground. You know, this is a very significant storm. And I was actually looking at some data yesterday that suggested there was 100 to 110 mile per hour straight line winds plowing east of Chicago. And this is deemed an extremely dangerous situation from the National Weather Service office there. And they put out the extremely dangerous situation severe thunderstorm warning, meaning that the damage is destructive and could even be deadly to some areas and some people there. So again, that's what we experienced yesterday. So I want to go over derechos. Again, they don't happen around this time of year very often. This is kind of a rare setup for this time of year. The derecho, they can happen from May to August, but you usually see them May, June, and also through about early to mid-July. That's usually the good setup for a derecho to happen. Now, August, 6% chance. It is one of the higher chances for a derecho when you're looking at the whole year in general, because we aren't going to really see them during the winter months. But still, I mean, 22% of them happen in May, 20% of them happen in June, 21% of them happen in July, and then August, you just kind of drop off a bit, right? At 6%. So we're just kind of getting a very, very late season derecho here. And I want to point something out too. This is a look at the setup for these features. Now, I mentioned the mesoscale convective system, the MCSs, or storm complex, if you will. So this was the setup for it. Again, you've got this heat dome to the south, and that heat dome essentially is creating all that heat instability ahead of these strong lines of storms. And what ends up happening is on the outer part of the ridge, or on the edge of the ridge, you get little weaknesses that cause disturbances in the atmosphere. And that's where your storms track. The storms essentially are tracking around the ridge of high pressure. And that ridge of high pressure is also allowing for all the heat, humidity, and instability out ahead of those storms that helps them drive for several miles. So I want to point out yesterday's wet radar. I'm going to go back. Again, this is looking at Tuesday, August 11th. So here you go. This is 10 in the morning. So I'm not even going to show you the actual derecho yet. I just want to show you all these complexes forming. And look at what they're doing. They're flowing around the ridge of high pressure. They're literally flowing around it. Now, I will say the setup was a little different yesterday than what I just showed you. I mean, the ridge was a little bit farther to the west, and that allowed the complexes to even make their way down towards the Charlotte area. But again, I mean, look at these. There's multiple of these forming. I mean, even as we go into Wednesday, we're still seeing them form back to the west. So, and just look at it. It's like they're going around a racetrack. We're taking the same path. And again, that is using up all the heat, humidity, and instability ahead of it, those storms, and that is creating the severe thunderstorms. I mean, there were just swaths of severe thunderstorms yesterday. So here's your derecho. This is it developing. Again, there are several classifications for it. So first off, you have to have an area of wind damage that extends for more than 250 miles. So they have to be very long track. Essentially, they have to travel for at least a couple hundred miles here. You need to have wind gusts along the damage path of at least 58 miles per hour or higher, and that is damaging straight line wind gusts. That's severe thunderstorm warning wind gusts right there. When you have straight line winds that are at least 58 miles per hour plus. Now, we do round a lot. You'll see these severe thunderstorm warnings out, and we'll just say 60 mile per hour winds. There's not much of a difference between 58 and 60. You're going to get damage regardless in that case if you have 60 mile per hour straight line winds crashing into a home or on you on the road. It's not going to be very easy to navigate. So we just kind of round it up a little bit when we're talking about it. But also another key point with derecho keys is that you have to have several well-separated wind gusts of 75 miles per hour or greater. So essentially you need to have more extreme wind gusts within this line too. And that's what we saw yesterday up in Chicago. 100 plus mile per hour damaging straight line winds reported in Chicago, or not really in Chicago, but east of Chicago yesterday. They issued that towards Gary. So I want to point this out. Let's go ahead and show you the derecho from yesterday. Here it is. Moving through Rockford, Chicago, and then, man, this was probably one of the strongest part of the derecho was right here. I mean, look at it. You can see that bow echo there. Look at that. That's the wind just being forced out. Look at that, man. That is a powerful storm. And it just kept going. I mean, that was, and then you kind of see it disconnect. And then now you just got like the storm complex that's essentially moving into parts of Southeast Ohio and also really Southern Ohio, Southeast Indiana into Southern Ohio, I should say, towards Cincinnati. And then also, I mean, you've got Eastern Kentucky. I mean, this thing travels for miles. And again, this technically probably isn't going to be classified as derecho, this part, just kind of the part that moved over parts of Iowa, through northern Illinois and into northern Indiana. But again, I mean, this was a just prolific storm system, creating a significant amount of wind and damage ahead of it. So again, this is a look at it. Now, the strongest gust out of this, I believe, was 99 miles per hour gust. That was what was reported. That was the strongest gust. So again, this was significant. This was the real deal. And again, you can see it just from some of the videos that are coming out from that area. Now, I haven't seen a lot of videos of damage and pictures of damage. There's a lot of power outages up there. That's one thing. There's been a significant amount of power outages, and I can actually pull up our power outages here just to kind of see just how bad the power outages are as of this morning. This is looking, I'm going to pull this up for you. I mean, man, there's just a bunch of red up here. So, essentially where you had the derecho yesterday, you've got thousands without power. I can go up there and kind of click on it and see just how many. As you get over the Illinois area, still 100 to 250,000 without power there, 250 to 500,000 without power in Indiana. And again, most of those probably coming from northern Indiana where the derecho went through. And then also 100 to 250,000 without power still in Ohio. And even Kentucky, Eastern Kentucky got hit really hard. You got 50 to 75,000 customers without power. So yeah, that just goes to show there's a lot of power lines down and trees down and transmission lines destroyed. That is why you've got numerous people, thousands without power, even as of Wednesday morning. Again, this derecho crossed yesterday morning, and now we're into this morning, and we still have hundreds of thousands without power. So it just shows how powerful this was and just how significant it was. So again, whenever you're talking about derecho, you also see kind of that bow echo effect with it, and I kind of want to show you what that is. So what ends up happening here, you get that damaging wind aspect. So I mean, this just kind of shows you how everything forms. You first start with your scattered storms there. Once your scattered storms form, you're talking about storms becoming linear. So once storms become linear, that's when they start to get severe. And what ends up happening is the back part of the thunderstorm, the backside winds, they get stronger than the winds ahead of the storm. And that essentially pushes the winds out. So the backside winds of the gusts push the storms out, and that's what you get your bow echo from. So again, that's what allowed that to form. Now here in the Carolinas, and one thing about these MCSs or derecho or whatever forms, they really cool things down quite a bit, and they make the forecast pretty difficult. So here in the Carolinas, we could be cooler over the next few days just because the storm complexes either bring some rain and storms, which obviously you don't want to see severe weather, but you also get a lot of cloud debris from some of the storms that weekend, and that can cause, again, the storms that can cause the temperatures to be cooler because the clouds are over the region. So that is something else that you can get out of derechos or MCSs or these storm complexes, because when they weaken and they pushed towards our region yesterday, although we did have a few severe storms, the thing is they brought a lot of cloud cover and brought rain and storms and cooled us down. Even for your Wednesday, August 12th, temperatures are going to be cooler because you still have a lot of clouds lingering in the morning hours from last night's storm complex. So that is something that honestly speaking, I've had a lot of experience with up in West Virginia. I worked up there for several years. They had a very powerful derecho in 2012. And after the derecho was the most deadliest part, because following these nasty lines of storms, you still have the heat. So I mentioned all those hundreds of thousands that were without power up there in Indiana, Illinois, the Ohio area, Kentucky. Guess what? They're still battling with. They're battling with heat. So now you have hundreds of thousands without power and no way to cool their homes. And they have to just deal with it. They have to deal with the heat. And that's what became the most deadliest part of the 2012 derecho up in West Virginia, because you had all that heat after these storms knocked out power for thousands, and nobody had a way to keep cool. So people were dying of heat exhaustion, heat stroke. And that was the most deadliest part of these. That can be the most deadliest part of these derechos, these powerful lines of storms, because after the power's knocked out, power crews do everything they can to get the power back on. And all of a sudden, you've got people dropping just because of how hot it is outside. There's no way to get cool. Generators, people are running out of gas because there are people in West Virginia that are filling up their gas tank. They're filling up their generators, just trying to keep the power going. And then people were running out of gas. I mean, it was a historic event up there. And luckily, talking to power crews like Appalachian Power up there, they've made a lot of renovations to their power lines, transmission lines, things like that, to prepare for derechos in the future, just so they can get power back on later. And there's also, Duke Energy's trying to, they've come up with stuff down here in the Carolinas to where they're making it to where if power goes out due to severe storms, there's ways to get people back on the grid before they even get out there to fix things. So you're seeing these power crews, they're really adapting to severe weather, and severe weather is becoming more common too, with climate change happening, warmer temperatures, hotter air, more rising air, more severe weather. And again, that is something that power crews are having to deal with. It's one reason, actually, when you hear from I've talked to Duke Energy, it's one reason that rates have kind of come up a bit, or there's been rate requests, just because they have to prepare more for severe weather, and they have to spend more money to recover from storms, like we saw with Helene and things like that. So again, severe weather is something we're going to have to continue to deal with more and more with our warming planet. But it just goes to show that crews like power crews and others are still preparing and figuring out ways to navigate these storms after they happen. So that's a look at derechos. I do want to show you exactly just how common they can happen. They seem rare, but again, as I showed you on that chart, about 70% of the derechos that happen in a given year happen during the toasty summer months. So I do want to show you exactly where they can happen. This is looking at a map here. It might be a little hard to read, but anywhere you have this kind of purple pinkish shade, that is an area where you can see a derecho at least once a year. And then where you see this red shade, that's where you see at least one derecho within this given region every 2 years on average. And then every 4 years, more of the yellow shade. And then you're talking about 4 derechos every 3 years. So, I mean, it's just kind of, key gets a little confusing there. But still, just goes to show that this is the region that you usually see it, because we usually have our ridge of high pressure in that given region and allows the storms to track around it. So that's a look at derechos. Again, a lot of crews are continuing to repair up there in the upper Midwest, the Ohio Valley. Thinking about those folks and our family and friends that you might have up there, and just praying for a quick recovery, and hopefully everything will be okay. Thinking about those folks for sure. Coming up in just a bit, though, we're going to be talking about the Perseid meteor shower. It's one of the best of the year for your summer months. I'll let you know how you can view it, the incredible view you'll get in the night sky. That's next. Welcome back into Pinpoint Weather University. I'm meteorologist Brandon Lawson. This is going to be my most exciting segment. If you're a stargazer, you'll see from me all summer. We're talking about the Perseid meteor shower. It happens every mid-August. It peaks, and you can see, this is actually a view from Bosnia. You can see the tank there, just kind of pointed up towards the sky. But look at all of the Perseid meteor showers just striking through the night sky. It's a beautiful view. Folks, this is one you've got to get out and watch. This is one that actually matters. I say that because we see meteor showers often on social media throughout the year. It's like, get out and view this one. You're going to see 100 meteors. You're going to see 200 meteors per hour. And it's just, it doesn't happen like that. This is one that actually really verifies year after year after year in mid-August. And it leads to an incredible show in the sky. So let's talk about how you could view it. Again, the Perseid meteor shower is peaking Wednesday night, August 12th, to your dawn Thursday, August 13th. So let's get into the stats here, show you how you can look at it yourself. Get out with your kids. They'll love this too. We're talking about midnight, so it's late. It's a late night, 11 p.m. to midnight. That's when it's best to get out, view it, because that's when the sky is going to start getting the darkest. And then you can view it until about dawn on your Thursday, August 13th. There's going to be a few clouds here in the Carolinas. I'm not going to speak for every single area in the U.S., but there'll be a few clouds, at least here in the Carolinas. It could block view at times. Now, with the Perseid meteor shower, you often hear 50 to 100 meteors per hour. Now, that is if you're in the most perfect viewing area. And the most perfect viewing area is going to be a dark area away from all light and looking up into the darkest sky you can ever look into, essentially. That's how you would get your 50 to 100 meteors per hour. Now, we're talking about the mountains. You want to go to the mountains for that. That's where you're going to probably get your best view. Some of the overlooks, because they're away from lights, things like that. Now, here in and around the Charlotte area, some of the bigger cities, Charlotte, Concord, Gastonia, if you live in the cities, things like that, it's going to be probably more of like a 10 to 20 meteors per hour, just because there's a lot of light around, and that can kind of dimmer some of the meteors that would be shooting through the sky. Now, something really cool this year that could make these meteors more vibrant, more the fireballs more vibrant, is we have a new moon And you're probably looking at me like, why does the moon matter? Well, if you have a full moon, the sky is going to be real bright, and that can diminish some of the viewing of these Perseids. Now, when you have a new moon, you have a darker sky, and a darker sky is going to give us a better view and allow these meteors to be more vibrant in the night sky because they'll be the brightest thing out there. You don't have to worry about the moon kind of overshadowing the sky, which is one of the things that we're really going to benefit from this year. Now, you want to look northeast in the northeastern horizon, but if you look straight up in the sky, you should be able to see them pretty well too. If you have an area where it's kind of hard to look northeast, you just want to go outside on the back porch, look at it, maybe just look straight up in the sky. You should get an okay view. Now, again, this is one that you got to get everybody out for, the family. I've seen it a few times, and I'm telling you, folks, there's not much like it. It is a beautiful show. And again, this is what it looks like. Oops, not that. I'm showing you the Chicago derecho damage there, but it looks like this. You can see Perseid meteor shower, and look at it kind of shooting through the night sky. I mean, this is just beautiful, beautiful stuff. And that's even with a few clouds out there, if you notice. Again, that's from Bosnia. You can see it too there. I mean, it's just gorgeous seeing them shoot through the sky like that. And stargazers, you'll get to see all your stars too. I mean, come on, this is awesome. Get out there with the kids, your significant other, maybe a friend, an uncle, an aunt, your grandparents, your parents, whatever, whoever you can grab me. I want to get out there with you and watch this. This is going to be a fun show. It's one that you don't want to miss. Again, it's the Perseid meteor shower. One last view on how you can get it. A good view of it. Best viewed after midnight when the sky is the darkest, 11 p.m. at the earliest, to about dawn on your Thursday, Wednesday, August 13th. We're talking about darkest sky where you're not where you're away from light. You know, you don't have any light pollution around at all. We're talking about 50 to 100 meters per hour, probably in rural areas, especially up in the mountains. And then if you're living in a city, bigger city, and you're around a lot of light, you're looking at more of a 10 to 20 meters per hour, which is still good. We don't see that very often with meteor showers. You start getting the Geminids as you get into later this year. That's another good show, but this one's a good one. You got to see this. New moon will make the meteors more vibrant this year. Again, new moon, the darker sky, going to make this more vibrant. And then you want to look northeast away from lights. But again, if you just look straight up, you should be able to see them as well. That is a look at the Perseid meteor shower and just how you can get a good view of it. One last segment before we go. The dog days of summer are over, but the heat is still on. I'll talk about why dog days of summer is kind of a myth. Details of that next. Continuing our astronomy lesson here on Pinpoint Weather University, we're talking about the dog days of summer. Now, you've probably heard that saying before, and you're probably like, man, I wonder what dog created that. Well, it doesn't have anything to do with a dog. It actually has something to do with a star. So you see the picture here. This is looking at just some of the constellations up in the sky, the star constellations. I want you to look at this one, the one I have my mouse on. Canis Major. What does it look like? Looks like a dog. Got its tail. Dog's got his head. Got his little paws, its legs, little hind legs. I mean, it's a dog. This is a dog. It's literally a dog. You can't question it. But anyway, the brightest star in the Earth sky, the name is Sirius. So Sirius is the dog star. So you've probably seen it before. It's a really bright star. It shines really bright. And it's actually about 25 times brighter than the sun. The thing is, though, it's 544,000 times farther away from Earth than the sun, which is why it doesn't add to the heat. But back in the day, the ancient Romans didn't know that. They didn't know that Sirius was so far away. They didn't know Sirius was 544 times miles away, 444,000 times miles away from us here on Earth. So they thought it added to the heat. Let me get more into this. So July 3rd, August 11th, that is considered the dog days of summer. And the reason why is because the star Sirius, the brightest star in the Earth sky, rises and sets with the sun during that time of year, during the hottest part of the year. So ancient Romans believed that Sirius added to the heat due to its brightness. I mean, if I was the ancient Romans and I'm sitting there looking at the sky, the sun's rising and it's setting each day, and I'm sitting back and I'm just chilling, and I see literally two bright orbs shining on me, I'm going to think, man, there's two suns out here. There's two suns out here, and they're shining on me and making me hotter. I would be the same way. But that, unfortunately, for the ancient Romans was not the case, but they gave us this cool saying, the dog days of summer. I think it's awesome, right? So again, Sirius is the brightest star in the Earth sky. But here we go, though. It is also 8.6 light years away. I know you're probably like, man, you done lost me now. 8.6 light years away. And that's why I use the thing 544,000 times farther away from us. Just think about that. That's a lot of times, right? Farther from us than the sun is to us. So again, it's not creating any more heat for us. But I will say this: I think it was a really smart thinking of the ancient Romans to think, okay, we got two bright things shining on us. This is what's creating the heat. This is why it's so hot from July 3rd to August 11th, because the star Sirius is in conjunction with the sun. They're teaming up on us to bake us during the summer months. I get it. I like it. So the dog days of summer, they're over, but unfortunately, that doesn't mean that the heat's over. As a matter of fact, here in the Carolinas, the heat's going to be on for the next couple of weeks at least. And honestly speaking, when you're looking at 90-degree history here in the Carolinas and Charlotte, we can hit 90 on average. The last 90-degree day is September 12th. The latest we've ever hit 90 in Charlotte, October 13th of 1954. So the dog days of summer may be over, but my dog's still wagging its tail, and the heat is still on here in the Carolinas. Hopefully you wagged your tail in excitement on this edition of Pinpoint Weather University. I'm going to go wag my tail and get ready for a noon show here at Queen City News. I hope you enjoy. Take care of yourself and each other as we navigate this earth together. Be safe, my friends. Take care.
went to the recruiter and I said, hey, I want to join Special Forces. And they said, well, you're the wrong gender.
Welcome to Stars of Service. I'm your host, Brian Christensen. Getting out of the military, it can be a really bumpy road. It's the water might not be clear of what you want to do, where you want to go, and the relationships that you have might be murky. You might need help to filter out everything like that, to see who and how you can communicate better, to have better relationships. And I thought I would bring a guest on today. Her name is Leah Schumacher, or Schumacher.
Yeah, Schumacher.
Sorry.
That's all
I
right.
apologize right off the bat. You are an Army veteran, and I want you to tell us, how you basically, your journey and what you do now.
Okay, so from the very beginning, I graduated from Wingate University. I got a bachelor's degree in psychology, and I was waiting tables, making $5.50 an hour, plus tips. So, yep. So, bachelor's degree and no trajectory in life, and woke up one morning, and it was President Bush was. It was a year post 9/11. President Bush was like, giving this.
Yes.
Yes, giving this very patriotic speech. And I was like, ooh, I should join the military. So I just took my little happy self over to the recruiter station.
Did you come from a military family or?
Yes. So
Okay.
my father was a Green Beret in Vietnam.
Oh, wow. Thank him for service. Wow.
Yeah, he was an amazing person. And he served over there 64 to 65. And like I said, part of, the elite special forces. And that was, it was just on the precipice of being, what it is today. Right. So it had just anyway, I digress. So I knew that my father could give me some advice. So I called him and he said, honestly, sweet girl, that's the best decision you could make. So went to the recruiter and I said, hey, I want to join Special Forces. And they said, well, you're the wrong gender, but we can give you a great MOS that will support the Special Forces.
Oh, really? Okay. Go on. Tell me more.
So I said, okay, what are those jobs? And then, of course, it is, all of the quartermaster jobs. So supply, water purification, cook.
Right.
All of, but we'll get you stationed with the Special Forces, though, the
Got it.
recruiter
Yeah.
says.
Just in case. Yeah.
So, and then 6 months later, I was Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, going through boot camp and went to Fort Lee, Virginia for my MOS training. And then as soon as I got done with that, hopped on a plane and went to Germany.
And this was the water purification job that you mentioned.
Yes.
The same one as Pauly Shore in a
Yes.
certain Army movie.
Yes.
Yeah. How accurate is that, by the way?
The actual process of
Right.
purifying the water is accurate, but everything else is a farce.
So you were offered a few jobs and everything else in the Army, and you went with water purification. Talk about what that truly meant, though, of what you were doing. Granted, it was a little far away from what you wanted to truly do. What was it like to just truly support the force?
That's an interesting question. So those of us that have been deployed know that we don't always do our MOS when we get deployed, right? So while I recognized that my job was important, that was actually a very small facet of the bigger picture of what I was doing with my unit there.
Right.
So what it meant, I mean, in terms of like an emotional perspective, or what do you mean by
Just basically, I mean, you're all part of the same team. It is one fight any way you
Yeah.
look at it. you've got this elite group of war fighters surrounded by everyone who is supporting them in order to keep the mission going.
Yes.
I mean, so you've got to feel some pride in what you're doing. You've got to feel that, okay, so the special forces guys would not be able to get out if I was there to help do my job and everything.
True. But the funny thing is that I was never stationed with the special forces. I was stationed with infantry units, like sniper units and just various infantry units. But no, I mean, so yes, so my recruiter told me
some murky things.
Correct.
I feel like they've done that to all of us in one way or another, but it's our job to get past that and to come out in clearer waters.
Clearer waters, yes.
Sorry, these metaphors are terrible today. But I'm gonna jump now where you served, and now you're getting out. And what's the process now? What are you doing?
So, backing up just a little bit, I had met my husband the October after I got back from Iraq. So I got back from Iraq August of 2004, met Jason October 2004. We get married the following July 2005. So it was a very quick whirlwind romance and marriage. And I actually got deployed again to Pakistan right after we got married. So I was in Pakistan. That was actually very fascinating because that was during the earthquake that they had in 2005.
Oh, wow.
And so we were actually part of the largest American contingent to enter Pakistan under those conditions. And we were humanitarian relief. We were with the MASH unit, the very last MASH unit that's ever existed, because then they changed everything over to caches. And so that was actually very fascinating. And yeah, that I could go on a tailspin with that. But
what regarding that though, and now you're doing something so far removed from what your recruiter told you you're going to do. What was that like real world, when it kind of hit the fan and you're right there and you're helping a country that just is recovering from an earthquake? I mean, that I can't even imagine what you saw every single day.
It was interesting because we were not allowed to have our weapons. Like, we were not allowed to have our weapons out, even though we had them.
Right.
We weren't allowed to brandish them. So we were actually surrounded by the Pakistani army, and I mean, completely out of my element.
Yeah.
Completely. And I could go into whole cultural, the cultural aspect and all of that. But for that, I will say that I did feel a lot more, not more helpful, but I did feel a lot more part of something greater than just, surviving day to day in a combat zone. I felt like we were actually, doing something positive for the people. And so that felt really good.
I can't imagine, especially pictures and video that came out after the fact. It's insane. With your career choice, your next career choice of going into mental health, I want to take a quick break, but we're going to come back and we're going to talk about that change from supporting to supporting one-on-one, where we're supporting an entire group of people, but now it's one-on-one. And I want to hear how you made that change. Welcome back to Stars of Service. I'm Brian Christensen. Today we're joined with Leah Schumacher, and she was a Army. What was the actual full nomenclature title to this?
It was 77 Whiskey Water Treatment Specialist.
How do you join the Army and say, "Hey, I want to be a water specialist"? I know we've got video of some of the a lot of soldiers, like, basically this is the job that they do. Talk a little bit of what you're seeing. Like, truly, what is the actual job, and why is it so important?
So depending on, what kind of zone that you're in, it could be that you're, like, you're purifying salinated water, you're purifying stuff that's like, coming out of a pond. Essentially, it is the immediate need to have water, not only for drinking, which I would not suggest, but showering. Showering was a huge thing. And then with the DFAC being able to
mess hall.
Yes, correct. Yes. And being able to
dining hall.
Dining hall. There you go. All these acronyms. I don't remember everything anymore, but yeah, I mean, obviously super vital, right? So water is one of the super vital ones. And we were sister MOSs with the Foxtrots, and they were the fuelers.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm gonna say what's that?
Yes, and they were the fuelers. So so essentially, and we were part of the 123rd Main Support Battalion. So support, I mean, obviously, that every MOS that we had in our unit was strictly to support the fight. And so yeah, like when I was in Iraq, I was stationed at a couple of different FOBs, but
forward operating
bases, yes. And so, like, I remember we were literally in a GP medium tent on the side of the road, and we were purifying water out of a broken water main from a mortar that had essentially turned it into like a small little pond.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so we just purified water that was already there, and essentially that means injecting a good bit of chlorine into it and making sure that that the bacteria
sounds tasty. Great.
the bacteria is less than almost non-existent.
So you worked in that filtered type of environment, and you eventually got out.
Yes.
And you eventually got to what you're doing now.
Correct.
Talk about that transition from, like I said, supporting others to supporting individuals.
Right.
And you used your GI Bill to do it.
Correct.
Talk about that.
Yeah. So getting back from Iraq, like I said, and meeting my husband during that time frame, a lot of my friends, my fellow soldiers, were going through a lot of difficult times. One of them actually got put in Mannheim prison for attempted murder.
Oh my God.
Another couple of them got heavily into drugs and alcohol. A couple of them attempted suicide. And my one of the my friends that was in my unit, in my platoon, I actually had to be 24-hour suicide watch for her. And so when I was seeing all of these things and noticing, and I got out and I said, I want to do something to help figure out how, what's going on, because PTSD was really not a topic. It really wasn't, even in that time.
And people were told to basically, as you're getting out, say you're fine. There's no reason to share anything that people don't need to know.
There's so much of a stigma that exists in and out of the military. And And so I had actually started working at the Red Cross in Cincinnati. And during that time, I found out about a 3-year program to get my master's degree.
Oh, wow.
And because I had already had my Wingate degree
Yeah.
paid for, the GI Bill paid for me to get my master's degree. And pretty quickly, I mean, obviously, I wanted to get into working with veterans. Got hooked up with a couple of internships that helped me work with veteran inmates at the Cincinnati jail, and they had a veterans treatment court there, and this was like on the cusp of like cutting edge back then. Well, now it's a lot more prevalent.
Right.
But instead of, if you have, whatever charges related to, drugs or, whatever, the veteran treatment court will treat those individuals by letting them get help versus being,
Serving or whatever the case.
correct. Yeah. So got in with that. And then, like I said, I got my master's degree from Northern Kentucky University. I had a couple of jobs, one working at the Salvation Army in Charlotte as the homeless veteran program director there. That was a very difficult job. I could only do that for about a year, and then I went into private practice.
Just too many people needing help?
I came home crying every day. It was heartbreaking, especially to see children in the homeless shelter and just the environment of that. It's just you as a social worker, you have to know where your lane is, right? So I knew my lane was not working with children, just too heart-wrenching.
Right.
And so because the veteran the veteran program was within the Salvation Army, I had to I was experiencing and seeing all of that. So
With and now with working, well, you'll have a veteran come in and you will talk to him or her and they can share their PTSD and or things that are going on in their life or that happened. What is the name of your title or your business? Excuse me.
So it is IGY6 Counseling, which is I've got your back, I've got your six, right? So I actually contract with the VA. There are a lot of veterans because of various reasons that either don't want to go to the VA for therapy. It's too far of a drive. They don't trust the VA. There's, a myriad of reasons, right? So the VA, I'm a community care provider. So the VA actually pays me to send the veterans to come and see me. So they come to my office. I would say probably 75% of my practice is working with these veterans, but and then I have just, the regular civilians as well that make up the other percentage.
That's I want to take one more quick break.
Yeah.
But I want to get on the couch and I want to ask you a couple questions as far as what today's the feeling for veterans and seeing what's going on overseas right now and what they're feeling. So let's take a break and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Stars of Service. We're joined by Leah Schumacher, who is a licensed social worker, who is also a veteran in the Army. And we were just talking about the clients that come and see you now. Majority veterans, and a lot of it is PTSD and other types of trauma. Can you tell me, in most veterans that are who have already served, what's going on in their minds right now with conflict in Iran? What am I thinking, on any typical, day where I'm doing my normal job, but I'm thinking, oh my gosh, there's this conflict on the other side of the world. I feel like I need to be a part of it because I was for 20 something years. What is that?
I mean, the way that it's been described to me is survivor's guilt, or leaving people behind, and not being able to participate in something that you've participated in before to serve your country, and it feels very wrong and very isolating, right? I do have one client who currently he's only been out of the service for a couple of years, and he actually has friends that are still in, and so he immediately made phone calls, hey, is it, checking to make sure that everybody's okay, because we've already lost soldiers in this. A lot of anxiety that is, not anxiety of like, oh, I'm going to get called back in, but more like anxiety, like, I've done this before. I've experienced this before. This feels, this is bringing up things that occurred whenever I was deployed or when I was in. And so, I mean, I have Vietnam veterans that are talking about, all of this being very triggering for them, and just kind of putting them again in that mindset of what it was like whenever they were deployed and they were going through this, and the state of the world was in chaos like it is now.
What are some things that we as veterans can do for ourselves to get past these triggering moments in our mind when things like these conflicts, other things in the world? What can we do to better ourselves, I guess, or to enable ourselves?
Well, I mean, obviously they need to come see me. No. No, having open conversations and dialogue about it, not just suffering in silence and allowing the, these negative intrusive thoughts to just, simmer in your mind.
And it's okay to talk to someone.
Absolutely.
I have talked to so many of my friends who have been dealing with like anxieties and other PTSD. I was in Afghanistan in 2011. There were 9 people that were killed while I was there. And I will have those days where, man, it would be really nice to like sit on a couch and talk to a provider and be like, hey, there are these little thoughts that pop up. How do I navigate those?
Absolutely. And what I've discovered is that with my vets, from whatever era, just because I have served and been in combat myself, they are able to open up a lot more. And so I encourage, any veteran, even if you don't want to sit down and talk to a therapist,
right,
join a veterans group, or like, somehow reach out to your old battle buddies and talk to them about what you're feeling. A lot of family members don't understand, and that's not their fault, but they've never been boots on the ground. They've never been in those kinds of situations.
And they're not going to have those feelings of survivor's guilt and everything else.
Correct.
With your day-to-day now, how special is every day to you, knowing that where you've come from, the path you've taken to help get you here anyway? What is that like every time a patient stands up and walks out the door with a smile on?
It is the besides my family, my children, my God, it is the greatest joy of my life. I don't have a job. I am so blessed to be able to work with, veterans and and civilians alike. But no, it's not a job. And actually, somebody asked me the other day, are you doing what you want to be doing with your life? And hands down, absolutely. God has blessed me so immensely, and I love being able to look back on all of the things that you went through, how I got to the point where I'm at now. Going to Wingate, getting my bachelor's in psychology, but not using it again for another, 10 years, my steps have been measured. And so, and my trajectory right now is exactly where it needs to be.
If you could say something to people who are watching, veterans, civilians, what's your message to them? And look into the camera.
Oh, okay.
There you go, fourth wall.
My message to you would be, don't wait to go and have a conversation with somebody, and also recognize that there's nothing wrong with you. What you've been through, especially if you're a veteran, is something that we've all been through to some degree. And so I would highly encourage you to reach out, even if it's not to a therapist, to reach out to a friend or somebody that can understand the plight that you've been through.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Watching Stars of Service. See you next time.
It is 3 o'clock. It's Wednesday. This is Queen City News Plus Live, coming to you live from the Blue Room. If you're watching on CW Charlotte, Queen City News Plus, or let's see, we've got YouTube and Facebook. Either which way you're seeing us, thanks so much for joining us. I'm Derek Dellinger alongside anchor Brian Blakely, Chief Meteorologist Tara Lane. We also have Director Beth here as well, just making sure we stay on time, at least, because we got a lot of stories to get to, a lot of things to talk about today. We do want to start off with some political stuff. In fact, some stuff that happened last night revolving around Darlene Graham and Ralph Norman. They had a debate last night, and for lack of better words, it was a very interesting debate. This is coming as early voting is starting in South Carolina. Let's talk about the early voting first, and then we'll get to Darlene Graham.
Early voting started today for
Yes.
the runoff primary between
Yes.
Darlene Graham and Ralph Norman. So that's going to run until Friday. And it's wondering if the numbers here are going to be affected by what was said last night in that debate. Ralph Norman and Darlene Graham was talking about national security, and she did not have much to offer on that regard. And here's what she had to say.
I'm just going to be honest here. I'm not on national security. I'm not that informed on national security. But I do support the military.
So you heard the gasps from some of the people in the audience there, and this was considered. She's been first off, she's been criticized by both Republicans and Democrats for that answer. And Ralph Norman, for lack of better words here, he jumped on that last night, basically suggesting that Darlene Graham could be unqualified for the seat that she is pursuing right now, and this has been something that is something that came up. It was actually a very legitimate question on national security and specifically involving Taiwan and the South China Sea. Now, Norman again suggesting the answer is the answer that Darlene Graham did give suggests that she is unqualified for the role.
Yeah, it was a pretty startling comment, to say the least, that a lot of people just kind of perked up their ears when she just kind of, she fumbled. And there's a lot of blowback from this today.
It's been called an implosion Norman as well.
Yeah,
so, an implosion, a fumble, and various many things.
And she just basically says she's just not uninformed on national security. She kept pointing to the military.
Yes.
I do support the military. And it was a pretty what a lot of people would say was a pretty soft, simple question when it comes to
and a relevant
national
question.
security,
Yes.
a relevant question when it comes to Taiwan,
and especially considering
with China.
and especially considering her brother, whose seat she's basically filling in, at least officially until November. He was a big foreign policy hawk.
Yes.
He knew a lot about foreign policy. He knew exactly what was happening in the world.
And she said, even in that part of the other soundbite too that we did not play, is that she says, "Look, I am not really a politician here. I am someone who really supports the military, and that's what she is standing up for, and she wants to stand up for the people of South Carolina." But this answer here really kind of exposed a lot of people are pouncing on today, and the polls are up for her. She came out as the winner in the primary, and now going into today's polls are people that are voting today and will they're going to vote on Tuesday, if that's going to have some sort of an effect.
She wasn't the winner of the primary. She was the top vote getter in the primary, and the top two, and the top two
move on.
Yeah, the top two do move on. We do need to say, as far as early voting, if you do wish to take a part in it, as far as those who are qualified for it, those who participated in the June GOP primary, they can vote in this primary. Also, if you've not voted in any primary yet, you can also vote in the primary, this coming primary that's going to be happening on Tuesday. It is worth mentioning here, if you voted in the Democratic primary in South Carolina, you will not be able to vote coming up on Tuesday, or from that matter, participate in the early voting, which is going on again now through Friday. We do have another piece of political stuff to tell you about, and this is actually ahead of the midterms happening in November here in North Carolina. Some interesting details about how North Carolinians define themselves, and they are more identified. And this is the outcome of this is actually rather interesting. They're more identified by their shared identities than they are the political parties.
Yeah, new Elon poll out, and it shows that people are having more in common here in North Carolina than you would think from the differences, and not as polarized as you might think. And part of that was that more than 3/4 of the respondents here, they identify as working class. 77% identify as the working class, while nearly as many identify as anti-racist, 74%. 74% identify as proud North Carolinians. And a majority of them, 68%, identify as middle class, 58% religious. 58% Second Amendment advocates. So there's a lot of stuff here that show that the people are very, very unified in some ways as far as their views. But also on the flip side there, some of the most polarizing are the political aspects of it.
Yes, and it's one of the more interesting aspects that actually did come out of this as well. 56% identify as country people. 51% identify as beach people. So that's kind of interesting, like kind of the takeaways. And actually what Elon did ask.
Environmentalists,
Yes. You probably have some more information on the Elon political stuff.
The political aspect, the most polarizing about it, 1/3 of identify, say, with MAGA, 34%, or Democratic Socialist, 29%. They found that was the least unifying as far as how the political aspects of it are driving people away. But overall, everyone kind of identifies with themselves together when you're talking about all the other issues outside of the political realm.
Yes.
Politically homeless, 26%, anti-establishment, 32% of the preppers. I found this one to be a kind of a high number. The doomsday prepper types, 19% identify with that right now.
Well, it just depends on how much you prepare for certain situations. That probably is how people identify themselves. The poll did note that Republicans and Democrats diverge in identities. Where they diverge, it's associated with political movements and cultural priorities. But the thing about it is, though, is that I found the numbers to be starkingly lower compared to how people identify, I guess, within society. And it kind of goes to show with the political polarization the way it is, people are still finding ways to, like, hey, there are commonalities with all of us.
Yeah.
Really. So,
Well, let's talk about tariffs that did not happen. We had tariffs today that were supposed to go into effect with Canada, but that was paused by President Trump last night. 50% tariffs on a slew of Canadian goods, but that paused now from President Trump at the very last minute. Is going to be happening for three more days as they're working out a deal. And the tariffs are supposed to go into effect at midnight last night. And it's going to be a lot of different products that were being worked on, as far as hockey sticks to other like alcohol and building and lumber and that sort of thing. But apparently Trump is touting some sort of deal that they're working on. Canada is touting that they're saying there's a lot of important work to be done.
Yes.
The meantime is the tariffs are not going to be happening. And a lot of it, this deal that was worked out with Canada was under Trump's first administration that Trump says it wasn't a good deal.
Yes, you have to keep in mind 72% of all Canadian goods do go to the U.S., and so that would mean a lot of things would be tariffed, taxed, as it were, if these had gone into effect. And it was set to go into effect around 12:01 this morning. So we need to emphasize here, this was a very last-minute announcement that was actually made here. And now President Trump does say, yeah, there's a last-minute deal. Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney says there's some substantial progress that's being made on the deal, but the thing about it is we don't really know too much about the specifics as of yet as far as what exactly is going on here, what concessions are being made, and what exactly is going on here.
Devil's in the details.
Yes.
And hopefully we'll learn over the next 3 days or so.
And whether or not, I mean, we've seen in the past the way things have either been delayed or, the deal, it doesn't wind up necessarily being all that beneficial to either party, but it still winds up being a deal. So we'll keep you up to date on exactly what happens here. But again, they've extended it for 3 days.
There's a big deal that's happening right now, too, that was announced today by pharmaceutical giants Moderna and Merck, that they said there's an experimental vaccine treatment that has shown signs of preventing cancer from spreading, and that is for high-risk melanoma patients. So this is kind of a groundbreaking stuff that has come out today.
Yes. The details on this involve the mRNA vaccine. It's called Antismirin, and it's by pairing it up with an immunosuppressant or it's an immunotherapy drug known as Keytruda. Once it is paired together, and that Antismirin is also has to be customized to basically fit the specific tumor, the specific genetics of the tumor. Once it's done, once it goes in there, it actually has a very good chance of preventing the cancer from coming back or preventing it from metastasizing more than just Keytruda alone. And so this is an important step that is kind of going into this. And the results were actually released by Merck and Moderna a little bit earlier. The broader scope of the study on this is that it basically it's supposed to extend the lives of the people that were in the study, and that's what it found. As far as how long, that's another question altogether. That information is set to be released in the next little bit, but this is big news.
Yeah, big news for anyone around who in our lifetimes, we've always known that cancer is one of the things that is the worst disease that you can get as far as taking a life. In the United States, about 8,500 people die from melanoma each year, roughly 5,500 men, 33,000 women, so it's more men than women, according to the data from the American Cancer Society. But this type of information coming out is really kind of gives a boost to a lot of health advocates out there, and also people who, dermatologists and people who are suffering right now with skin cancer too, because this gives them a lot of hope.
Yes, and you kind of have to figure too, okay, if this does work for melanoma, what else could it be doing down the line, or what could this lead to down the line for other types of cancers that affect so many people? I mean, it's like, potentially ovarian cancer, potentially stomach cancers, potentially throat cancers. What exactly is this going to the eventual end game here? As far as, okay, you've got this, what else is going to be coming? And that could be leading to a whole lot more advances down the line, potentially involving variations of what's happening here now.
Yeah, and I also want to throw in the part about AI. We don't really know if it had anything to do with this part of the stuff because they're marrying two drugs here. But one of the things, too, that they're looking forward to AI is them helping with developments in medicines going forward to try to cure cancer as the development of AI gets greater and greater going forward. So this is one of the great positives about AI going forward, too.
Yes. We do have some weather stuff to tell you about. And in fact, this is some incredible video that's out of Alaska right now. And this actually involves a fire that was sparked by a down power line there. It's grown to over 5,000 acres, and it kind of goes to show how dry and how quick it has spread. 20 buildings have been either damaged and destroyed out in that area of Alaska, and it's also forced some evacuations. We've got hundreds of firefighters out there, too.
Yeah, this was posted on TikTok, and you can just see how dry it is everywhere you look. We were showing video yesterday here on QC News Plus live when it was in Oklahoma about a FedEx truck that had driven by and sparked a wildfire outside a home where the guy came out and put a hose on it and put it out quickly. But you can also see the video here just showing how great that wildfire is with smoke spreading all the way up into the sky. And just shows you also just how dry and these weather conditions are. and how dangerous it can be for a lot of people that are fighting these fires that are also in the line of the fires as well.
Yeah, in case you're wondering, this is in the eastern part of Alaska, an area you were mentioning some of the videos from TikTok. It's in an area called Tok. Yes, in eastern Alaska, which is near Fairbanks. So, the population there isn't really very high. But it's, again, the fact that the evacuations have been ordered and the fact that the buildings have been threatened or have burned up altogether because of that.
And worried about the wildlife as well, because the wildlife is certainly very abundant in Alaska. And when you have something like this, it threatens them as well. Let's turn to the weather back in our area. Bring in Chief Meteorologist Tara Lane as we look live in downtown Monroe today. No heat advisories, but it feels a little better outside.
Makes us feel a little bit better.
Yeah, it's not like it's not as 95, 97 like we had before.
No humid sweats.
We're trying to be positive in some way, like that little piece of news. Just slightly lower dew points out there today in the mid 60s as opposed to the higher 70s. So yes, as you guys said, I mean, no heat advisories out there today, even though it still feels like up around the triple digits in some neighborhoods. We've got a hot 92 in the Queen City, light southwest wind. We do have some low and mid 90s are off to the east. So far, the hot spot here in this 3 o'clock hour, 94 for you all in Wadesboro. But once you factor in the humidity, again, it still feels like, look at that, a last check in the urban heat island of the Queen City, it feels like 103 degrees, and that's in the shade. Now, so we've got high pressure that's been in main control here behind Monday's cold front that brought some of those damaging thunderstorms, parts of the foothills. So we stayed dry yesterday. Same type of setup here today. So keeping it on the dry side. If you have plans, if you're going out this evening, taking the walk around the neighborhood, playing some tennis maybe, clear sky, no issues with chances of showers and storms. Now that starts to change tomorrow as we get our next front approaching. Not until a little bit later in the day, mainly we'll be watching for the chance of just a few isolated hit or miss showers and storms. At this point, we do actually have a low end level 1 out of 5 risk of severe storms. Damaging wind gusts would again be the main threat. But let's check it out on future radar here. So through tonight, again, we're still dry early tomorrow morning, waking up to dry conditions, some clouds around. Later in the morning, we could start to see maybe a couple of showers, especially breaking out in the mountains. And notice how we're really not expecting widespread coverage of the showers and storms. So a lot of you likely will still squeeze out a dry day, but especially areas south and east of Charlotte, late afternoon, evening, even overnight, a couple of heavier showers and storms could kind of move through the area. But Friday is definitely looking like the more active day when it comes to just widespread showers and storms, heavy rain in spots, especially to the east of Charlotte and even around the Queen City. By the end of the day on Friday, early Saturday, we could be ending up with about an inch or even close to 2.5 or so inches of rain in those areas east of Charlotte. So flooding, some brief or minor flooding is something that we'll have to watch for to wrap up the week. Shower and storm chances go down, especially by Sunday. And behind that front, we are tapping into some even lower humidity to kick off next week. And little less heat, too, especially on Saturday, only 88.
88. But it's better than the 97 or the 99 or the... What was interesting is my temperature gauge at my house, I'll put it to you this way. It had some direct sunlight on it. Mm-hmm. It said 124 at some point.
Oh, my gosh.
124.
It was that direct. It was that direct on it. So it's like the idea of that is like, no, it won't be happening. It won't be happening there. So, yeah. So coming up, we do have some incredible piece of video of a pilot that was able to walk away from a crash that happened. It was a fighter jet pilot. And how casual he kind of was about it. That is coming up. This is Queen City News Plus Live.
Welcome back to Queen City News Plus Live here on this Wednesday, 3/19, coming to you from the Blue Room and also outside as we take a look at the Queen City skyline. Hot one out there today, not quite as hot as yesterday, and hopefully it'll get a little cooler heading into the weekend. Derek, I want to talk about some newly released body camera video. It shows some dramatic moments here at Atlanta Police rescued two young sisters from a Southwest Atlanta trailer. They were apparently kidnapped by a woman that had befriended the mother there. But a very interesting story that you're looking at right now is these two are really in a very hot trailer.
Not only in a very hot trailer, but also very young as well. In fact, you don't necessarily see them just yet, but the girls, 4-year-old and an 11-month-old, they were found in that trailer. Their babysitter is the one that's accused of taking them. Now, the two were the subject of an Amber Alert in that area, and you see the blurred out image. That's actually of one of the girls there. The babysitter, her name is Lakeisha Brown. She was arrested. The mother says that she met the suspect a year ago in a mom's group and had apparently gained her trust. The thing about it is that Brown had been previously accused back in 2021 of a kidnapping of a 4-day-old baby in Alabama. There's an additional story there saying that Brown was apparently she had dropped off the mother had dropped off the kids with Brown, and when that happened, the children were not returned. That prompted the call to the police. Apparently, there was some reports that she said that she was taking the kids to Walmart, and then they had all gotten in a crash, and then the contact was also lost there as well. But it goes to show it's like how serious they were. And not only that, a lot of questions about that babysitter too.
Oh yeah, and it's certainly with a past like that, that raises a lot of questions about going forward. With the name is Lakeisha Brown.
Yes.
Now, and the investigators they described these as deplorable conditions right now, unclean, unsuitable. It was 97 degrees. It didn't in that trailer for the very young 11-month-old, the 4-year-old Zola Cooper and sister Nora. So this was a very, I guess you could say it was a dire situation. They got to him pretty much just in time before something really bad happened. They found both of the girls crying when they did, and now they're rescued and they're back with their mother, which is really, really good news. But we'll see what happens to Lakeisha Brown going forward.
Yes, and there's no motive on the kidnapping, by the way, but that information should be coming out in the next couple of days. Interesting video out of Missouri. Now, this happened, I believe, last month, and officers were actually serving a warrant in Missouri when this happened. And yes, it was last month. You can see it was July 21st when this happened.
Wow.
Yeah. The deck collapsed as they were actually trying to serve a warrant for a man who was failing to register as a sex offender. It was part of an ongoing crackdown operation, but there were so many people that were on the steps there. And we know several of the officers were injured, reportedly some with some broken bones and concussions.
Yeah, 5 of the officers there suffered some broken bones, and they were taken to the hospital. Obviously, had some torn muscles and concussions, as you can imagine. Taking a fall like this when they're trying to just do their job, they were hospitalized. The Federal Task Force is part of a multi-week enforcement operation called Operation Adam's Watch, and named in honor of Adam Walsh, the 6 who was abducted and murdered in Florida in 1981. John Walsh's son from America's Most Wanted, very famous show that was carried on Fox for a long time. So there's certainly an awful situation here for these individuals, and to be captured on camera, which is good. The body camera was able to capture some of that.
Yeah, there was no word on whether they were able to arrest the guy that they were looking for there, but it kind of goes to show that is secondary to basically what happened and the collapse of that deck there.
Some of the other video that we got here, and this is what you were talking about earlier in teasing before we went to the break there.
Kind of incredible.
It's just incredible to see this man who had just crashed in Washington and he was rescued after ditching a plane. And if we go ahead and have this video, if you can pop that up there, let's go ahead and listen to it.
Are you the only pilot?
I am, sir.
Okay.
I'm okay.
Okay, let me see. Parachute laceration.
Yeah, it looks like I went through some trees and whatnot.
What kind of jet is that?
That's an F-8. Well, that was
An F-18?
Yes.
I heard you guys.
Yep, we were doing circles over the lake, doing in some low-level training.
Okay.
And then I tucked in, and I'm not sure exactly. Honestly, I'm a little...
Nope, you're fine.
But I tucked in.
You hit the tree bad, bud.
I went through the trees.
You can tell he's a little bloody in the face there. This happened back in June. The fighter jet crash happened there. Pilot quite literally able to walk away from it. Again, somewhat bloody there. Apparently, the cuts on his face they were believed to be actually from the parachute when he ejected himself from the plane.
Yeah, and when you're going down, he's sitting there explaining to the situation about what happened to some of the officers there that were trying to rescue him. But just to sit there and walk out nonchalantly like he did from a crash, goes to speak to his training, goes to speak to his wherewithal with all of who he is. And
the fact that he ejected just in time, too.
And he ejected just in time is what he was saying as that plane was going down.
And he was on the phone with 911, by the way.
And 911, okay, right there. Then you can see the phone in his hand. So certainly a very harrowing situation there for that man.
Yeah, military officials say that the pilot was doing routine training when there is, and I quote here, a non-fatal aviation mishap. That crash, by the way, that did happen in Washington State back in June. It is still under investigation. But again, incredible that he was able to, and as nonchalantly as possible, at least in a circumstance like that. And coming up, we do have a bit of a tribute still ahead for drummer of ZZ Top. He has died. We'll be remembering Frank Beard coming up next. This is Queen City News Plus Live. Some sad news out of the music world. The drummer for ZZ Top has died. Frank Beard, he was 77 years old. He had been in hospice care in Texas, and he's being remembered very fondly by very many people, not only the other members of ZZ Top, but also a bunch of other drummers for his influence.
Oh, yeah. A very influential band, the Texas kind of hip stuff that they came out with a long time ago. Give Me All Your Lovin'. Everyone kind of loves that. You want to sing that song. Legs. Great song. And then, of course, Sharp Dressed Man. I mean, maybe everyone's, you got to listen to that song over the years. But it's ZZ Top. They have sold more than 50 million records. They had 6 singles that reached #1 in the Billboard's mainstream rock airplay chart. 7 of their albums have been in Billboard's 200's top 10, and they earned 3 Grammy Award nominations. Frank Beard was considered like a legendary guy with the band, and how they came together.
And the fact that he was pretty much with them for the last 50 or so years.
Yeah, and of course they're very well recognized because of the beards that they have, which you were saying that they didn't even really grow those until the 70s.
Yeah,
right?
so when they were doing one of the articles that basically was essentially served as kind of an obituary for Frank Beard, they did make a point of saying that the beards themselves weren't necessarily like a part of the band until like the mid 70s. After everybody came back from an extended break, they just didn't shave. They just showed up on stage at one point.
The
It
hippie
kinda
stage,
stuck. Yeah, it kind of stuck. So the co-founder and guitarist Billy Gibbons, here's what he had to say, and I quote, "Today, Elwood and I lost a great friend and collaborator, and the world lost one of the most naturally innovative drummers and a great and true son of Texas. His signature backbeat was the key of keeping ZZ on top. The band of which he was a part of for 6 decades is going to keep on keeping on as he wished." Now, as far as the specifics of how Mr. Beard died, we know that he had some ankle and feet issues over the years, and that there were some health issues going on that actually prompted the cancellation of a concert that did happen a little bit earlier this month, or that did not happen a little bit earlier this month. But there was no specific cause given on his death.
Yeah, it's sad to see him pass, but certainly we sit to remember their music as well.
That will do it for us for today. Queen City News Plus Live. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
Have a great day.
Welcome into Turnkey on Queen City News Plus, your go-to show for everything real estate in the Carolinas. We talk about the latest market trends, do's and don'ts of the industry, and provide expert advice on navigating this dynamic landscape that we call home. You may be thinking, well, I would love to have a home someday, but I can't afford it. That's the topic that we're discussing today. And to help us do that is Joan Good. She is the president of the Canopy Realtor Association and an active agent as well. You kind of wear 2 hats. I don't know how you manage your time, but you do it quite well.
Well, you're very kind, and thank you for having me back. My goal, Morgan, is to be the Alec Baldwin of your show. He's hosted Saturday Night Live more than anyone else. So that's my goal.
What is it when they reach a certain number? It's like there's a club for
There's
SNL,
a club,
right?
and yes, and I should know that, but I don't.
Okay.
Because right at his heels is Steve Martin.
Yep, exactly. All right, so maybe it's like the 6th timer. So you're well on your way to that. Today we're talking about affordability. And it's something that's on a lot of people's minds out there is housing isn't getting any less expensive.
Right.
There was actually a recent study released by Belk College of Business saying that affordable housing is critically scarce. Less than 2% are under $150,000 and about 18% are sold for under $300,000. So this, I think, is, Joan, I mean, it's what is on people's minds who are like, I want the American dream. I want to own a house someday. But then they see articles like this, and this was just released in November of last year, so fairly recently, and they get discouraged. What would be your message of hope to them?
So I am optimistic, although you are right. The average price of a home in the greater Charlotte area right now, the median number is $420,000. So individuals looking to purchase that home have to have a household income of $100,000. And that sounds so unattainable for so many. However, there's a multitude of options. We have condominiums, we have townhomes, builders are offering incentives. I think the outer lying areas, you'll see more building. Thank you for putting that up. Townhome building right now, attached homes, which that is really where I think first-time home buyers and actually our service workers, this is where nurses and police officers, we think of it as just first-time home buyers, but truthfully, it's the people that are making our city work each and every day.
Yeah. And we've noticed that there's been
a huge effort to increase supply.
Yes.
And before the show started, you said, I hate to reference 2020 because it was like 6 years ago, but it's close enough in our memory banks that we always go back to 2020. Oh, remember when the market was crazy and there was like what was the inventory then? Half a month?
Oh my goodness, we were down to 1 day. So we had no standing inventory.
No inventory.
No inventory.
Yeah.
You know, you put the sign in the yard, let the auction begin, no matter what. That was crazy. Unfortunately, the mindset of sellers is still that mindset of 2021, and buyers think as soon as the market starts to change, oh, it's 2008. I'm going to come in with these exceptionally low offers, and the sellers are going to take it because they're desperate. We're not there, but where we are, Morgan, is becoming more balanced, which is healthy. More options for buyers. Doesn't feel that way when you're a seller, but it's good. It's a good, healthy market.
I was just looking at, Canopy releases all these great statistics every month, just kind of giving people an update on the market and where the local market stands. And in there, it says, despite the growing inventory and additional choices for buyers, sellers received 96.3% of their original list price. That's down just ever so slightly from 96.6% in May of 2025. But what stood out to me is this isn't they're receiving 120% of their list price. So buyers are offering below list price, or they're offering the list price of the home. And then during due diligence, they're negotiating maybe a lower price because maybe the inspection came back with something they didn't know. That's what that tells me.
That's the reality, and you're exactly right, Morgan. When buyers are viewing homes, now they have the time to make the decision, which we don't talk about that enough. But when there's very little inventory, 1 day's worth of standing inventory, there's no time to make a decision. There are no options. Now we have options. And while you're in the due diligence period, which you mentioned during inspections, one of the options might be, okay, so we paid and negotiated as a buyer a little more than we thought, but we didn't recognize when you look behind the walls, as an inspector does, if you will, we didn't recognize that there would be immediate expenses coming into this home. So they're going to try and negotiate some type of concessions to get that price down a little bit. And that's where you're seeing the 96% of closed prices. But what doesn't show up that we see on our MLS as realtors is that seller concession. And that's deducted from that number.
Right. And the seller concession, I'm seeing a lot more of that on the multiple listing service, which is MLS. So I'm seeing a lot more sellers are agreeing, okay, I'll give you $5, $10, whatever, $1,000 just to make sure this thing closes.
That's right.
Which they weren't doing before. Imagine that, negotiating the price of a home.
Oh my goodness.
What a novel concept.
What an idea. But it's true. There was really no negotiation when we were in the crazy world of, it was like the wild, wild west. And now we're back to reality. We're going to negotiate all the way, like you mentioned, until the day it closes.
Yeah. It's never, I'm going to steal what you said before the show. It's never a seller's market and a buyer's market at the same time. How would you describe the market currently?
Oh, that's a great question. So for a seller, it very much feels like a buyer's market. But what we're moving toward is a balanced market. And a balanced market is when you have 6 months of inventory. We're at about a little more than 3 months right now.
Something like that.
That's exactly
okay.
right. So it is still considered, believe it or not, a seller's market. But what buyers feel is, again, we mentioned it earlier, there's more choice, there's more time to make that decision. So it's becoming more balanced.
So to that point, something else in this report that Canopy released is we are at the highest level of inventory for the region since September of 2016. I thought, okay, where were we in September of 2016? So it looks like the supply is roughly 12,600 homes for sale. The pace of sales in 2016 was completely different than it is now. Much faster. I took a look at the rates, and the rates were between 3% and 4%. So I'm like, okay, that makes sense that it was still a very competitive market, still a seller's market, because the rates were low. People were buying, even though the inventory matches what we're seeing now. The rates didn't match what we're seeing now. Rates are mid sixes right now.
That's exactly right. And you know, that is the conversation being had constantly. But if you look through history, and it's hard to do when we have recently experienced unprecedented 3% rates and below, 6.5 feels huge. But many people in the early 2000s.
It's not double digits.
It's not. You're very well said, because our grandparents and parents maybe bought homes in that double digit range. But 6.5, you really feel that when you're looking at your monthly payment.
Closed sales are down 1% year over year. But under contract, meaning you place an offer on a home, the seller says, yep, I'm accepting that offer. That means you're under contract. Under contract is up nearly 8%. Those two don't really seem to match. Closed sales down 1%, but under contract up nearly 8%. Does that mean that there are more buyers backing out of transactions?
Very well said. So what happens is we count under contract. You're under contract. Oh my goodness, you are in love. And in an inspection, right?
Then you fall out of love.
Then you sort of go through a rough patch, as we say. And you have inspections and maybe it doesn't appraise. We never saw that previously in the crazy wild, wild west of real estate, but we're seeing that now. Homes are not appraising. And inspections may come back and there's a negotiation, which we started this conversation with, and it may go the buyer's way or it may not. The seller may not be willing to provide concessions or do whatever the buyer thinks is necessary in order to close. Buyers have no issue walking away from their due diligence because due diligence money has become something that is somewhat normal. It's not the crazy.
What's normal? I mean,
I know.
And again, comparing to, and I think this is a great question for someone looking to buy a home. Okay, due diligence. You're buying time to kick the tires, so to speak.
Right.
And you say, I'm going to pay what, $5,000 to kick the tires. During COVID, it might have been, what was the highest you saw during
$300,000.
Due diligence.
Due diligence.
Yeah, you're not backing out of that deal.
You're not backing out. That means I want it. I don't care what's wrong with it.
Right.
But I think, and people will always ask this, I'm sure you're aware, buyers will say, so what is a typical due diligence? And please know that real estate is all gray area.
Right.
So there isn't
Such a
anything
scale.
typical. However, what it was intended to be was a house payment. So you pay the seller a house payment to take their home off the market for 30 days to do your due diligence. And then COVID hit and it became crazy money, skin in the game. But if you think about that and if you look at what your house payment would be for that home you want to purchase, then that's a realistic number for due diligence. Again, as we started this conversation, everything is negotiable, and that's one of the items that are very negotiable.
So I think that's great for people to know that number. And that means that, you back out of it, that's what you're going to lose. You're not getting that back, at least in North Carolina.
Right.
So I think that's great for people to know. But again, it reflects how due diligence has changed, going from the extreme of putting down $300,000, there's no way I'm backing out, to now you get under contract and you're like, well, the max I'm going to lose is $2,000. And if there are issues that you just can't get past, then you lost $2,000 and you move on. It's a tough pill to swallow regardless. Losing money is never fun.
It's never fun. And you know what? It's tough for the seller too, because again, we were talking before the show started, then the seller has lost that time on market.
And then it's almost like it's stigmatized in a way. I hate to use that term because it's kind of like real estate term, but it is.
It actually
and
is.
someone sees that as, okay, they had a buyer drop out. What's wrong with it?
That's the first thing everyone thinks. And so it could be nothing. It could be they've literally changed their mind, found something else, but it could in all reality be something in inspections. If there is, the seller is required to disclose it, but 9 times out of 10, it's negotiating.
Well, and most of the time you see the disclosure at the bottom is, back on market due to no fault of the seller.
Right.
And that's a lot of times what you end up seeing. So dialing it back to affordability for obviously the buyer. As we mentioned, it's not typically a buyer's and seller's market at the same time. So sellers, you might want to pay attention to this as well. The median townhome sales price declined, and again, this is for our area, declined 2.4% to $350,000, while condo prices fell 4.8% to $295,000. Sellers might be sweating a little bit. Are we seeing, I guess on the seller side, they would call it a saturation in the market of townhomes? On the buyer's side, some real opportunity?
That's exactly right, Morgan. Well said. So builders are focusing more on density. They're not making any more land. So townhomes really is where we have the focus from builders. And one thing that an individual selling a home cannot do is give incentives that may be $10,000 off a new extra room. We're going to finish out the 3rd floor, right? A townhome, a builder can do that. A seller has to take it out of their pocket, out of their proceeds. So in the outer areas of Charlotte, you are definitely seeing more inventory. Builders building, and buyers are, especially buyers that want affordability, we talk about so much, but want to get in maybe for the first time, or like we mentioned prior, they're our industry workers. They need something less than $460,000, which is the median price. So they're going to townhomes.
Well, not everyone wants the upkeep of a house, a single family home with a yard and all of that, and a townhome and or condo might be the perfect fit for them. So I guess if a buyer is listening to this and thinking, okay, I could probably, based off of those numbers, maybe I can afford a townhome or a condo. But is that the smartest investment then, if we're currently seeing that they're almost depreciating a little bit?
Right. That's a great question. And you know what I always say to my clients is, are you buying this as an investor, or are you buying this as someone who's going to live in this property? And and that
it is an investment. I get what you're saying with investor, though.
Investor,
yes, more landlord or
and so you really can't put a number on the time that you spend there when you're not renting. That's a financial a liability, if you will, paying rent versus paying your mortgage. I always say, do you want to pay your mortgage or do you want to pay someone else's? Right. And that's where you are. And then we have no way to know, really none of us have a crystal ball, when it comes time for that seller to sell. Will the townhome or the condominium appreciate at a rate that you want it to? Because back to what we said originally, it's never a buyer's market and a seller's market at the same time. So hopefully when you're ready to move into something different, and it is truly a buyer's market because it is very cyclical, then you will have the upper hand, if you will, when you go to purchase. So back to your question, is it a good investment? All real estate is a better investment to own than to rent. So my answer would be yes, but I don't think you count on appreciation on anything. You really just can't count on it.
Well, and just taking appreciation out of it, I always think, okay, buying isn't always for everyone. You don't know the financial situation. You don't know if someone's going to move out of state, and maybe buying a house and paying closing costs and all that stuff isn't a good decision when you're going to pick up and move in a year or two. So I'll preface it with that, but rent is 100% interest. And when you pay your mortgage, a certain percentage of that is going to your principal, your equity. You're basically saving money. And so I always think that is, to your point, you can pay someone else's mortgage or you can pay your own. Obviously, in the beginning, when you're making your payments, it's mostly interest. And eventually, interest and principal cross paths at somewhere in the middle, but it takes a while to get to that point. All right, someone's looking to buy their starter home. How much do they need? It's a loaded question, I know. I'm going to challenge you with this one.
That's fine.
How much do they need? Top concern right now, according to an article that I found online by CNBC, would be mortgage rates. That's the top concern versus economy, inventory, and prices. So we've talked about prices and inventory, but the main concern is our mortgage rates. That in mind, how much should someone try to plan to save for a home? How much should they plan for closing costs? What would be their all-in, obviously extracting from that their own personal financial details?
Right. Well, and I'm glad you brought that up because all-in weighs a lot of different factors, right? Certainly down payment. And everyone thinks, oh my goodness, I have to have 20% down. That is no longer the case.
Right.
So my advice would be definitely investigate all types of loans for your first purchase. And then you touched on this also. The affordability really ties into your financial standing. So $200 a month is the number right now that Charlotteans are paying for streaming services. So that,
I love that you brought up other expenses.
So that brings your buying ability down $30,000, right? So you've got to think about that. Your car payment, your student debt, all of that adds into what do you need to purchase a home. First, you need to get your finances in line. And there may be some things you need to pay off before you can buy a home. But to specifically answer your question, if you were purchasing a median priced home, which is $460,000 in Charlotte, you would need a household income of $100,000.
So you mentioned this, and this is not something we discussed ahead of time, so I'm putting you on the spot. Student loan debt.
Yes.
This is going to be a very new territory for borrowers because all of a sudden that COVID relief that they were getting, that's gone. The payments have started back up. And I think I saw it was like 1 in 5 federal student loan borrowers are currently in default.
Yep.
Considering that, do you think that will severely impact housing?
I certainly think there will be an impact. I absolutely agree with you. But one thing we haven't mentioned that we're seeing a lot, once a student loan becomes the student's responsibility, we're seeing the bank of mom and dad come into play more than we ever have before, because many, many people's parents have this huge appreciation that they're sitting on for years in their home. And what better way to invest your money than your children? So I'm seeing that more than I ever have before, Morgan. But I do think long term it will affect the ability for individuals to be able to purchase a home.
Okay, because when the loan officer is calculating things, they look at the debt to income ratio. That's what it's called. All your debt and what you're earning. And there's a percentage that they spit out, a cap, right? Which is roughly 35,
it depends.
40%,
35 to 40, it depends, but I think we could safely say that. Yes.
Okay. So student loans, is that, and I probably should keep this for a loan officer, a question for a loan officer. I would think that that's factored into all that because that's a monthly payment.
So I do think so as well, and I am not a loan officer at all, and so I need to stay in my lane. But I know that all recurring expenses are absolutely factored in. That's why I brought up the streaming services.
Right.
That's something we don't think about, but $200 a month adds up.
I think that this generation, we're so spoiled. We have the iPhones. If we, depending on the person, you want to get your nails done, you go get your nails done. There are all these things that we do, pay for streaming services. My mom always goes back to when she was starting her barber shop. She said, I lived on generic tuna while I was getting started.
Right.
I don't know if our generation could do that.
I just don't think we could.
So if you need to cut back and you want to, and you really want the house, there are ways to do it, but there are also sacrifices to be made. And I just don't know, looking at our generation, if we know how to do that. And you bringing up the streaming services is just a prime example of that.
I absolutely agree with you. It's been easy for so many years that we're going to need to sit back and really tighten our purse strings, if you will. If your goal is to buy a home, and that is the greatest way to create generational wealth, so why would you not try? Why would you not put a little work into it, right?
Yeah, I agree. All right, Joan, is there anything that I missed? I know we had a whole bunch of talking points and we went off script a little bit today, which
we
I
always
totally
do.
love.
Which we always do. You know what? I think that one thing that we didn't say and probably needs to be said is that everyone says, are things affordable or not affordable? And I think the answer really lies somewhere in the middle. It's sort of nuanced. So it's affordable if you take care of, like you mentioned, some of your debt. It's affordable if you look outside what you were thinking. Maybe you're thinking a single family detached home, and a townhome may be the best option, or condominium, for where you are today. I think it's fair for us to say Charlotte faces affordability challenges, no question about it. But I think the two of us are optimistic Interest rates are higher, but they're not 15%. They're actually historically low, which it doesn't feel that way. And it's all about really understanding your finances, knowing your options, knowing there are different types of homes out there, and working with a knowledgeable realtor and a knowledgeable lender who can help navigate all the resources available. We have down payment resource right in our MLS, and 80% of our listings have